Thank you, sir. Okay, let's see.
We got him having their way. Y'all want to drag along? It's only him got him having his way. Get him out of the way.
Well, it's no sense in going on and on and
That's
on.
what I'm saying. And
Figure out where you are.
This regular meeting of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen for May 21st will come to order. I'm going to ask you to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and then I will ask you to remain standing for a moment of silence for those who've been so devastated by the tornadoes near Oklahoma City. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will you bow your heads, please? Amen. Please be seated. We welcome all of you to our attendance and who are in attendance tonight. It's not often we get a crowd this big. We've got two public hearings. One has to do with beer, and the other one's about a new schedule of fees for the city cemetery, and I don't think that's what you're here about. So, but to start things off, let me just say, anyone who wishes to speak, to make a comment about this first ordinance, which is amending Chapter 2 entitled Beer, etc., I'll ask you to come to the podium, which is to my left, state your name, and take 2 or 3 minutes to state your position on it. It is not a time that you ask questions of the board. It is simply that we can hear your feeling pro or con. So as we look at Ordinance 13-06, is there anyone who wishes to speak in regard to this audience, to this ordinance? Mr. Rudd?
Evening. My name is Marlon. I own a music store on Main Street. I would like to encourage the board not to do anything tonight, and I'll tell you why that is. It was my understanding that you were going to pick an advisory board to advise the city council about what to do to revitalize downtown, and I think it's in why bother? If you're going to make all the changes before the board even has an opportunity to study and make a recommendation, I would like for you to consider not doing anything. And at this point, I'm not entirely sure what we're really even discussing, because are we really discussing 250 versus 300, or are we discussing the downtown overlay? Because as of the first reading, it was changing from 250 to 300. I don't know if y'all remember how it got to be 300, but the board wanted to change it. The council wanted to change it from 150 to less, and we doubled it to 300. So that could happen again. It could actually go the other way, but I would prefer that we just not do anything right at the moment. And then I'll just real quick try to make a couple of brief comments. It is an incorrect statement to say that there are no bars in Springfield. That is not true. Bars that do not sell food, unless you consider pork skins to be your supper. We do have bars in Springfield. I've been in many, many bars through the years. I've made my living playing in them for a long time. and I wouldn't recommend it as a way of life. But I'm not a teetotaler either, and I would like to try to be a part of whatever's best for Springfield. I have one quick point to make, and then I'll finish. Oftentimes it's brought up about Applebee's or O'Charlie's, and they're named specifically. If you go back and check the record, they're named specifically. First of all, they don't come downtown. Second of all, you pull onto their property and park, and you pull in. Downtown, you parallel park 2 blocks away, and you walk down the sidewalk with 2 or 3 children in tow. Then you cross the street, and you drop one off at the dance studio, and then you walk up the block, and you cross the street again, and you drop one off at the Springfield Guitar Company for lessons, and then you walk up to the bookstore, and you buy your homeschool stuff, and you do your shopping, and then you come back down to the Springfield Guitar Company with a child in tow, and you pick up another child. Anybody here ever had a kid jerk away from them like that when they're saying, "Oh, come on, baby, come on, let's go"? What do? Kids can bolt just like that. I just think we need to take a look at what to do with downtown. I do have some ideas. I'm sure there's some people in this room smarter than me that would have even better ideas. But I just ask the board, or ask the council, not to do anything today. Why do we have to be in a hurry to pass a law to hurry up and affect really one person? Thanks.
Thank you, Marlon. Is there someone else who wishes to speak? Matt Burnett?
Hello, my name is Matt Burnett. I'm definitely for the economic development of the downtown Springfield. I'm here to speak on behalf of John and Jay Pennington. They're brothers that have a contract to purchase the building on 6th Avenue, which many of you know used to be the D Squared building. Their contract to purchase is contingent upon this ordinance being changed to allow this in the city. These guys are experienced, very experienced restaurant owners. They started in the 80s designing restaurants. They've opened several very successful ones. Many of you may have heard of South Street, The Boundary, Loco Taco, which is in, I think, 6 or 7 different cities. And then most recently, Urban Grub, which is probably one of Nashville's most recognized and newest happening restaurants. So they know what they're doing. Behind here, you'll see they've already invested money and time into some site work on it. They've invested in their inspections on it, several things. They have a plan put together. They're wanting to utilize this as a community restaurant. They want to support the community. In turn, they know they do that the community will support them. Just want to let you know that we are in favor for this. This restaurant we feel like is going to bring more retail downtown, more economic development. It's definitely going to bring tax dollars to the city and help revitalize this area.
Thank you, Matt. Someone over who's standing at the left had their hand up. Neil Peterson.
My name is Neil Peterson. Anti-saloon ordinances are obsolete in this situation. We don't have drunks wandering up and down Main Street molesting women and children or disrupting church services. We don't and won't have saloons, bars, or taverns with disreputable people hanging out on Main Street. Applebee's, O'Charlie's, Torino's, and the Depot are not hotbeds of drunk driving or other abusive drunks. Springfield needs high-end restaurants, and the fact is that these establishments can't make it on food alone. They need the markup that alcoholic beverages provide. I believe the attempt to tweak the setback restrictions proposed in the current version before the board is an example of government overreach, trying to choose winners and losers. That's not government's job. You can best protect us by encouraging businesses, which will increase the normal flow of tax revenue and encourage other businesses to follow suit. Please go back to the modification of the overlay as originally proposed, and let's get a new restaurant in Springfield. And by the way, I don't even drink, so that's not an issue.
Thank you, Neil. Is there someone else who wishes to speak, pro or con? Brother Tyson.
Thank you, Mayor and Board. Appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak to you this evening. I'm a little like some, I'm not sure quite what's on the floor. What I understand is that there is a proposed change in the documents from what they were previously. And I'm talking even before the overlay, that there was an ordinance before and we've gone through several transitions. Is that correct?
The best way to put it, what we were dealing with that we started on a month or so ago was an overlay for the downtown area that covered the more or less a rectangle, 5th Avenue on the north, 7th Avenue on the south, Willow Street on the east, and Locust on the west. That was amended to go back to the citywide ordinance and change it, the distance requirement, from 300 feet to 200 feet was the action.
Okay.
So we beg pardon, to 250, yeah. So that's where we are. That overlay was amended with this language put in it.
For citywide to bring it down to 250.
That's
okay,
correct.
Thank you. I would basically propose that even with the overlay, that we not change, even go to that format, but go back before the proposal of the overlay for what the original arrangements were several years ago. And the reason I say that is because I'm told that to make any change, whether you do an overlay or whether you broaden it to include the whole city, changing the distances, that somehow that's going to be good for business. And I'm pro-business, particularly when you come and bring industries into the area that allow citizens to want to stay, but also bring in other people to want to live in the area because they believe it's a good place to raise a family. And so not only in those instances when you bring in industry, you have opportunity. Maintaining people wanting to stay, you have growth. And I think the census have shown that before all this was ever discussed, that Springfield, Robeson County have grown tremendously. Between 1990 to 2000, it was experienced over 20% growth. Between 2000 and 2010, it experienced over another 20% growth. So before all these were on the table, our area has grown by over 40%. I don't believe that the issue before us tonight is really an issue of what's best for, or what's good for business. I believe that the paramount issue before this body tonight, in fact, I believe it's a supreme issue, is will you do what is best to provide protection for your citizens? The decision you make will help, I think, determine whether you accept a responsibility to defend and protect the citizens that you've sworn to serve. I think that's the overarching issue. Growth has already taken place. The downtown area has already proven that quality businesses can grow and survive here. Some of those being the Tea Room, Crossroads Christian Bookstore, Springfield Guitar, the Dance Studio. Other professional businesses have also thrived in the downtown area as well. But you have, along with that, you have not just with the dance studio, but you have also with the theater, you have, and some other businesses, you have businesses that are attracting family and children, particularly to this area. And because of that, you also have churches that attract family and children. Therefore, I would urge the board, including our mayor and the board of mayor and aldermen, to see that its most solemn responsibility is to take actions that provide the best possible protection for our children and our families. And therefore, I urge you to defeat any change before all this came up. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris Herring.
Mayor, Aldermen, ladies and gentlemen of the audience, my name is Chris Herron. I'm a resident in the Historic District of Springfield in the Mr. Clay Sneed's district in his ward. As elected leaders, I ask you to vote yes on the amendments related to the overlay ordinance for downtown Springfield. I understand what it's like to be a leader. I make decisions for an organization. I've led the Springfield Rotary Club as president. I led the Robertson County Chamber of Commerce as chairman. I continue to lead my healthcare team of NHC Springfield, which I've done for 14 years. I'm a graduate of Leadership Robertson County. I'm a recent graduate of Leadership Middle Tennessee, in which I toured recently 10 counties in Middle Tennessee, including Robertson County. And the people I spoke with were proud for their downtown districts, as they had restaurants, retail shops, and businesses which were alive and prosperous. As I mentioned earlier, my wife and our 3 kids and a dog chose to move to the historic district of Springfield, Tennessee. I can tell you we absolutely love this neighborhood for its beauty and its feeling of community. But the one thing it's missing is a vibrant downtown, with restaurants to go to during the day, in the evening, and on the weekend. A restaurant we can walk to from our beautiful home and meet up with our neighbors and our friends. So from one leader to another, I ask you to lead our community into prosperity and to vote yes on the proposed amendments to support the ordinance before you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Excuse me. Does someone else wish to speak? Ron?
Thank you, gentlemen. My name is Ron DeBerry, and I am here on behalf of Commerce Union Bank. And if you'll remember back 7.5 years ago, Commerce Union Bank made a very significant investment in downtown Springfield when we revitalized the old Bank of America building that had been abandoned for over 2 years. And as part of our hope was that we would help revitalize downtown Springfield, because to us, a vibrant, healthy downtown business district is absolutely essential. And as we visit other communities around Middle Tennessee that have been successful in revitalizing their area or their downtown area, one thing comes out each and every time, and that is that there's one or more vibrant, successful restaurants in those downtown areas. And just like Chris says, they generate traffic. That traffic generates other retail businesses, and you build out a vibrant downtown area. But as a fact of life in the restaurant business today, a full-service restaurant cannot survive on food sales alone. They've got to have beer and wine sales to go along with it for the incremental revenue that it generates. So we're asking that you support whatever measure it takes to allow one or more good restaurants to come into downtown Springfield. We absolutely need it. We've got too many empty buildings, and we've seen too many businesses come and go downtown. Our preference would be the overlay that was originally presented, because it only involves downtown Springfield. But if you have that overlay, you're going to have a zero tolerance in there, so that if a church or something comes into that area after this restaurant opens, that they don't jeopardize the future of that investment of the people that open that restaurant. So we ask that you give serious consideration to approving the proper legislation tonight. I would also like to say that I'm on the executive team or executive committee of realizing Robertson County's future, and we're certainly supportive of this resolution as well. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. DeBerry. Does someone else wish to speak on the subject? Pastor?
Mayor, Alderman, I'm pleased to be here to speak with y'all tonight. I'm Pastor Ron Baptiste. I pastor Covenant Confirming Ministries, and I represent all the membership of my church. In our church, we also offer a support group for people with addictions of every sort. We also offer the community a free medical clinic and I ask that the board would vote no on this issue. The last thing that we need is another bar or another organization serving alcohol that is within 200 feet of our churches. I implore you to change, not to change this, to leave it as it is, because I just don't think that we need that. And I also do not drink. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. For those that do not know me, Jonathan Garner. I wear multiple hats, but I guess I am here for the Chamber of Commerce and as a Robertson County Commissioner that represents Springfield. I can appreciate the position that each one of you sitting on this side of the podium are on. I mean, we wrestle with this. It's not an easy task, but certainly something that I can recognize as a commissioner working with the comprehensive growth plan that many of you are familiar with, that planning is essential. And I appreciate the time and efforts that each of you I know have gone through in planning and trying to determine what's best for the city. We're talking about the downtown district, the commercial district. When I came up here with my wife 6 or 7 years ago, the downtown district was one of the things that appealed to us. It certainly, as a lawyer that practices here in Springfield, we are complimented on a daily, if weekly basis by the downtown district that we have. And, you know, I would submit what we have here is this commercial district and the planning for it. I don't think this is a morality issue. I don't think that this is necessarily about alcohol. And that's going to sound somewhat silly, but it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity, as the Chamber notes frequently, to live, work, and play in Springfield. And I don't want to immediately get into alcohol and drinking, but in order to promote things and promote certain aspects to attract restaurants, to make us vibrant here, the fact of the matter is that we're not going to get consideration for many of those type of entities. So when you're considering this, consider this a commercial district, or I would submit that you need to consider this as a commercial district, because that's what this is. And we certainly have top-notch law enforcement. We certainly have great planners here in the city of Springfield to be able to help us and help the city plan for our safety, plan for the concerns of the citizens, and to be able to manage this commercial district. So I would submit, as I live here and as I work here and as my family plays here, just take advantage of this opportunity that we've got. We're a progressive city and we're moving forward, and these considerations, I appreciate the opportunity, because I would think there was many years ago that this would not even be here for consideration, and here we are. So I thank you for that opportunity, and I thank the community here, and I really do mean that, for a vibrant discussion on it. So when moving forward, let's plan for a vibrant commercial district so we can brag on what we already know to those on the outside, and more importantly, attract those from the outside to our wonderful community.
Thank you, Jonathan. Now, is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this subject? Keith?
Thank you. Mayor, Board of Aldermen. My name's Keith Woodall. I was the former owner of Crossroads Christian Bookstore. I've had a bookstore there and owned the building there for 15 years. And I've actually lived there as a resident for 10 years. So what I want to speak to you tonight is more on a personal issue. There are other people that live in downtown Springfield. There's at least 5 owner-occupied residents that lives on Main Street. Now, when you're making considerations about these things, we're talking about business and all this kind of thing, but we have residents down here living. It's going to affect us. You know, if I have a bar slash restaurant slash bar right next door to me, that's going to affect my lifestyle. So I just wish you would put yourself in my shoes when you're making decisions here. Whether or not we're able to get this restaurant in over where we're proposing it or not, the residents, especially the ones that live down Main Street, need to be protected somehow so that we don't have one next door to you. And all due respect to Mr. Herron, You know, he lives in historic downtown Springfield, but he's not living in the downtown area that y'all are talking about. He's not going to have a bar or restaurant next door to him. Y'all aren't zoned for that. I can. If you change this ordinance to what I think you're going to, I can have one right next to me, one across the street from me. And, you know, I'm in complete agreement with Mr. Marlin that I don't think you need to take any action on this until the advisory board that you're planning on putting together has a chance to look at this. And I strongly urge you to put one of the residents of Main Street on that. And I'm not stumping for that job by any stretch of the imagination. But I think we should have some representation from the people that are residences there. Just put yourself in my shoes. You understand where my concern is. And so I just wish, you know, I sent a letter to each one of you. You know what I feel about the other issues of that. I'm not going to reiterate all of that. But I just really want you to look inside yourself. I want to look you in the eye, and I ask you to either postpone this for the advisory board to look at that y'all are creating, or take no action on this or vote against it. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. Does someone else wish to speak now? Hearing none, then we'll conclude this public hearing. The second public hearing is relative to Ordinance 13-07, which establishes a new schedule of fees for our city cemeteries. Is there anyone who wishes to speak with regard to that matter? Hearing none, the public hearings are closed. We appreciate the views that have been expressed. You all have complied with our request. You've spoken sincerely. We appreciate hearing from all of you. Now, item 1.3 is the approval of the minutes from the regular meeting of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen held on April the 16th. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? If you favor the approval of those minutes, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. So ordered. And now we're going to item 2.1, which is ordinance 13-04. This is the third and final reading. This would rezone a 3.5-acre tract at the corner of Childers Street and Central Avenue from R7 residential to MH2 mobile home park. This is being done at the request of its owner, Wayne Briley. It's been discussed and approved on 2 prior readings. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Mr. Sneed, this is indeed in your
This
board, and you approve. Is that yes, correct? All right. Any further comment? Hearing none, I'll call for the question.
Snyder.
Aye.
Carneal.
Aye.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Sneed.
Aye.
Head.
Yes.
Ellis.
Aye.
Mason.
Aye.
Pass 7-0.
Okay. And now, this is ordinance 13-06. This is the second reading, and this is the ordinance for which all of you spoke earlier. Is there a motion that be considered on second reading?
So moved. Second.
Second. All right. Any discussion now? Mr. Hubbard?
Mr. Nutting, you want to say something?
I would.
Well, you go ahead.
All right.
First of all, I guess you saw him first.
Yeah, I saw him.
Okay.
First of all, I'd like to make a recommendation, and I'd like to give the board some information before I do. Mr. Ross, if you pass it down.
Didn't want to disrespect.
Just say for everybody. Should be a copy for everybody. Just one of each. As soon as everybody gets a copy of my handout, I'll proceed. Okay, first of all, I want some clarity on this because it's actually my fault the first time this came up. The proper title for the section, as it now reads,
and will read, is minimum distance from church or school. That's the proper, it's not on premise. When I originally had drafted this ordinance, I was looking at a section of the subsection of the section, which that always makes it confusing for the people that are codifying at MTAS. So I chose to put in the entire section, which means it's properly entitled minimum distance. So I just want to clarify that. In what you have, when I went ahead and adjusted the ordinance to get to the 250 that you voted on the last time, I did change that minimum distance from church or school. Technically, that is now correct. Now, I wanted to make a couple of recommendations. First of all, with regard to the minimum distance, I wanted to suggest that be restored to 300 feet citywide. And I've explained in my memo, so I don't need to go in much detail on that. I did want to state too, when we had the overlay district that was taken out on first reading, that that overlay district that was described was simply for discussion only. It didn't really have tight boundaries. If you read it closely, it really needed to, because I thought the board would talk about, if they wanted an overlay district, exactly where the boundaries would be. But that was taken out on first reading. On second reading, I would like to suggest that the overlay district be added back and that it be more tightly defined. And I'd like to read that definition, description of the overlay district. And you have a map of it in front of you. And it says, the minimum distance requirement of this subsection shall not be applicable to otherwise fully qualified eating establishments located in the core area portion of the Springfield Central Business District, which surrounds the historic Robertson County Courthouse, a National Register property located in the CC Core Commercial Zone, and further described as within the area that includes all buildings fronting on South Main Street between 5th Avenue West and 7th Avenue West, all buildings fronting on 6th Avenue West between South Main Street and South Locust Street, all buildings fronting Court Square West between 5th Avenue West and 6th Avenue West, and all buildings fronting 5th Avenue West between North Main Street and North Locust Street. Essentially, those are all the streets that face the courthouse and all the buildings that face the courthouse, with the exception of those that extend down the 7th Avenue off South Main. So my recommendation is to restore the 300 feet citywide and to have a tighter definition of the overlay district downtown, and that be added back in on second reading. Remember, after second reading, something cannot be modified. If it gets defeated, then it has to go back to step one.
Okay. Mr. Nutting is recommending really an amendment to this as he has outlined.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
Point of order, I was next.
He's got a question here. You want to go ahead with that question? All right. Back to you, Mr. Hubbard.
Yes, sir. I'll just take 2 minutes.
Okay.
As a graduate of the University of Tennessee Local Government Association, as a diamond leadership of the National League of Cities for Local Government, I have definitely seen the small towns comparable to Springfield in the state of Tennessee and across America. And I definitely concur with the two gentlemen said about having proper community eating establishments in the core commercial areas. And another comment, in order to be a leader, you got to have courage. You got to take the risk. You have to do what you know that's going to propel your city to greatness. And I have that courage. So, Mr. Mayor, I'm definitely recommending to reinstate that 300 minimum for the whole city. Also, with the addition of that tight, small overlay district as Mr. Nutting put out.
You're making that in the form of an amendment?
I'll make that in the form of amendment,
Is there
sir.
a second to the amendment?
Second.
It's now seconded. Now, discussion. Ms. Sneed, you have a question? Okay. Any other comments on this? The amendment takes precedent at this time. We'll need to vote on that first.
State
Any
what
other
we're
comments?
voting on, please, sir.
We're voting on the proposal that Mr. Nutting outlined, which essentially is to reverse the last amendment and go back to the 300-foot distance citywide, and to restore the overlay as he precisely defined. Mr. Nutting.
Mayor, let me get that a little more clarification here. If you go to 8-211, you go to on-premise permit number 2. The last motion of the board on first reading was 250 feet. You're going to change that to 300 feet. Then you are going to take the second statement on the overlay district descriptions, and you are going to insert that where the last one was, which is on the bottom of the first page of Exhibit A, beneath the subsection that is, the one sentence subsection there that refers to another aspect of the special occasion license under Chapter 4. So that is precisely
my
how you
motion
would
come
do
from
that.
there.
And also to clarify, just for the record, that the proper title of 8-211 is minimum distance from church or school, and that's the entire section that is being acted on.
Mr. Ellis, did that answer your question? Okay. Are there other comments on the amendment which is before you?
Can I amend the amendment before we vote on
Mr. Balter?
what vote on that first?
I don't think we have to take action on the amendment before it be amended. Motion and second.
You think not? You want to look that up, or? Bruce, you just cost us some extra money. He's having to pour through that book down there.
An amendment to be amended. The first amendment is called a primary amendment. It applies to the main motion. This amendment is called a secondary amendment. It applies only to the primary amendment. The secondary amendment must be germane to the primary amendment. It needs a second and is debate is on the merits of the secondary amendment. The third is not allowed.
So we can have what Bruce is asking we do. So we deal with it next, correct?
That's correct.
All right.
Okay, I would offer an amendment
To
to
the
the amendment that would only add a minimum distance of 100 feet instead of no distance
To the,
requirement from a church or school.
The whole city or the?
No,
An
just
overlay.
just an
Overlay.
overlay, just an
yeah,
overlay.
okay, I'm back a little.
All right, you're changing the overlay to from no distance requirement within those boundaries to 100 feet
Yes.
from schools and churches.
Yes.
All right, is there a second for his amendment?
I'll second the amendment to the amendment.
Okay. Any discussion on the second amendment? Mr. Hubbard?
Point of order on professional advice. Can I get, would that apply, Mr. Nutting?
It's not what I recommend. The issue to me is how people are going to be able to use their buildings. It's not about one building.
That's what I'm saying.
Any
So-
further questions?
So what we're gonna vote on now is what Bruce has proposed.
That is correct.
The issue is not about the building.
The
It's
100
about,
feet.
the issue to me is about respect for those churches and so forth that's in that area.
But then you'll kill the whole purpose of having a full-service restaurant in.
Well,
a
he's not
core
actually
commercial.
killing the whole purpose. He's just putting a 100-foot distance in there to offer them some
compromise. It's a
I don't-
compromise for those people.
I don't really, Mr. Mayor,
Sir?
I got to argue this. I don't really think it's gonna allow the full service restaurant to serve its purpose.
If we don't respect those churches, we should just do away with the distance requirement, OC.
You know,
Are you still speaking on this?
yes, sir. I'm not disrespecting churches, but I do want my core commercial area to grow.
As do I.
And I do not want where I'm going to knock out a tax-paying, generating entity. Because we need that in order to grow. See, I mean, you know, we have to think about that also. We have to think about it also. And I'm not gonna say anything, I'm not gonna get off into a faith issue. But we can coexist as I made the amendment and not kill the whole purpose just because we want to include, as you're trying to say, a climate of disrespecting the churches, which I do not agree with you, sir.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Steve?
You asked for my opinion on the earlier issue that required some zoning change in my district. I guess that obviously carried some weight there, and I approved of that one. This is also, a lot of this area is in my district. Without being asked, I'd like to make a point that this is a compromise for some people down there. There's only a couple of places who are looking to do the restaurant business right now. If it looks like it does well, we can always come back and do away with the rest of the distance requirement. Just kind of compromise with some of the people who are down there.
I'm not gonna compromise at 100 feet there.
You don't have to compromise it. I think we're getting to the point now, we've discussed that enough. Unless someone else has got another question, you can express your views as you vote on this amendment. Any other discussion on the second amendment? All right, call the roll, please, on the second amendment.
Carneal.
Aye.
Head.
Yes.
Sneed.
Aye.
Mason.
Mr. Wonder Bruce? No.
Snyder.
No.
Ellis. Hubbard.
No.
Pass 43.
Okay, we're back on now the First Amendment, the one Mr. Nutting has explained. Now, is there any further discussion on that? Mr. Hubbard?
I think you need to clear.
Let me see if I can, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I guess what we need to do, Mr. Spalter, is just incorporate, see if I can reword that to incorporate the 100 feet. If I just
that's what they've
have a
basically done.
second, let me just see if I do that.
That's what's been doing.
I'm going to just make sure that we get this.
Mine was,
Mr. Mayor,
Sir.
while Paul's doing that, I'd like to mention that all the business people who are here today, I wish you would show up on some other things besides the consumption of alcohol. There's other issues that are before this board, before the city, who are very important. Bond issues, indebtedness, things of that nature. Where I don't see this kind of crowd or this outpouring of comments on a lot of other things. It's just surprising that just the consumption of alcohol brought out such a who's who of business leaders.
Well, I think what you've seen, Mr. Sneed, is a group of people who are very interested in keeping a very vibrant downtown, as Clarksville has been working on, as Franklin, Murfreesboro, Columbia, and a number of others. And I think this is a component in it. It's the restaurant factor, and the restaurants think they need that in order to survive financially. Now, Mr. Nutting, what have you got?
Okay, I think, Mr. Balthrop, let's see how this sounds. A minimum distance requirement of 100 feet shall be applicable to otherwise fully qualified eating establishments located in the core area portion and describe basically the overlay district.
I think that does it.
All right, we're back on this amendment. As amended, full effect of it is the overlay goes back in, but it has a 100-foot distance requirement.
Mr.
And
Mayor.
the two, let me finish, please, sir. And the 250-foot distance requirement that was in the Mr. Sneed's original amendment has moved up to 300 feet. Now, Mr. Hubbard.
Is this going to affect the 6th Avenue venture?
Not to my knowledge, not this
They went
100 foot.
100 feet, right?
Mm-mm. No. It's, there can't be a church or a school within 100 feet of it.
Okay.
There isn't.
But this venture can still be instituted?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
what I want, okay, that's what my,
Did everybody bring the
clear on
map?
that. We clear on it.
We got the engineering map.
Yeah, I've got it.
You want to see it?
No, this is all budget.
I would like to address a statement that was made earlier, Mr. Mayor, and I would do it briefly in 1 minute. I'm glad that the business community came out
Within a distance of 100
because
feet.
you do follow us on progressing and growing this city. And I will not make that comment. I know you're aware of it. This is a step forward to show that we're not going to remain a city that rolls up the sidewalks at night. We're going to grow.
Is the shape
As
of
our
that's the building,
twin
right? So
city
100 feet,
companion 30 miles
right.
down the road. We want some of that spinoff. And the only way we can do it is being progressive.
Yeah. Give this a try.
That's what Mr. Brewer's talking about right now. We need one of those maps.
If somebody moves into there. Well, can we?
It was a beautiful map. No, it's not gonna kill it.
But the fact is, the West until they could move something in there.
6th Avenue.
There you go. Is it gonna work?
Not if it's over first. David.
That's not the one.
David.
It's colored.
It works.
The one.
All right, we're back on this amendment as amended with the 100-foot requirement put in it. Any further discussion on that issue?
Call for question, sir.
All right, if you favor this amendment that Mr. Nutting has outlined, it has been amended to add that 100-foot requirement. You'll vote aye when your name is called. If you're opposed, you'll vote no.
Ellis,
No.
Hubbard,
Aye.
Sneed,
No.
Snyder,
Aye.
Carneal,
Aye.
Mason,
Aye.
Head,
Yes.
pass 5-2.
Okay. Now we're on the main motion, 1306. Any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Head,
Yes.
Carneal,
Aye.
Snyder,
Aye.
Mason,
Aye.
Hubbard,
Aye.
Ellis,
No.
Sneed,
No.
pass 5-2.
All right. Business is taken care of. Okay, we go to 2.3 now, which is the cemetery fee schedule changes.
Everybody's leaving now.
I'll give those present a chance to leave. They so desire. I gotta get a drink of water.
All right.
Can we just take a break? Yeah, let's take a break.
Recess.
I wish some of y'all would stay.
Don't bail out.
I think we're getting a square.
You know what?
Thank you.